This is the Michael Bryan Show. Hi everyone, welcome back to the show, and I am joined with Mark Weinstein, who is a world-renowned tech entrepreneur. He is a privacy expert and actually one of the inventors of social networking. So Mark, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Michael. Great to be here. Hi, everybody. You're going to enjoy this conversation. It's a great conversation, and we're going to cover a lot, and it's fun and, scary.
So let's talk social networking at first. So what was your start like? And I'm curious about how you've developed and grown as social networking has as well.
Everybody, and when Michael used the phrase correctly, one of the inventors, I'm guesstimating there's probably between 50 and 100 people around the globe who approximately around the same time in the late 1990s were ideating this idea of really replacing email with all the new technology and with the web and creating community for families and friends and like-minded people and common interests. This was all being born. And I, created a company, and I gave birth to superfamily.com and superfriends.com and superfamilia.com, super alumni, super, biz groups. Anyway, Superfamily and Super Friends became PC Magazine top 100 sites in the late 90s, 1999, 2000, 2001. This is the era of Web 1. And Michael was really cool about Web 1. For some of you who may not even be old enough or weren't even born, a lot of you were around, of course. But Web 1 was visionary. It was altruistic. It was really about serving the member of your site, which today we call users, which is a strange word because that suggests an addict. But the idea was connecting people, making the world more harmonious, keeping us in contact, because you could already work around the world at that point. So with your friends and family, it was way easier than this, one-dimensional experience called email, which, by the way, for anybody young enough not to remember, we had email in the 90s. And it was exactly the same as it is today. It was exactly as horrible as it is today. One dimension, you can't get any beat on the emotion, on the nuance, et cetera, of the conversation. So this is really where social networking came from. And so that's Web 1. And unfortunately, Web 1 implodes. It imploded in 2001 because the game was different. Investors were throwing money at us. You could go to any high net worth person and have them write a check, a VC, whoever you wanted. Everybody was just looking for where can I write a check for this new economy that was going to, make everybody a boatload of money. But what happened was investors got scared in 2001 because all of us, all the sites were focused on getting eyeballs. We called them eyeballs back then, which is members, registered members. And that was really your revenue. That was what made you valuable. And all of a sudden, investors decided it was time for real revenue. And none of us were ready for real revenue. We were so busy doing what they'd asked us to do, which is grow your platforms, grow. And then we'll figure out how to respectfully monetize. So investors got the emotions, the winds changed, investors panicked, thousands of companies went out of business. That was the end of Web 1. Gave birth, Michael, to Web 2, which is what we're still in, curiously enough, some 20 plus years later. This is the rise of surveillance capitalism, everybody. And Michael, you let me know. Do you want me to go into that story?
I find it interesting with the whole monetizing us as users. So yeah, dive into it.
Yeah, that's exactly what changed. In Web 1, members were customers to serve, not products to sell. There was no spying. We didn't steal your data. News feeds were in timeline order. Everybody loved it. It was very straightforward. There was no algorithm deciding, and analyzing what your thoughts are, what you like, what you might buy in a few minutes, etc. There's none of that. So there's no BS, as I like to say. Web 2 is born out of the ashes of Web 1. And a revenue model is born. It's called surveillance capitalism. Google masterminded it with their ad model, which became a very targeted ad model, just based on a few words you might type into search. Facebook arrives in 2004, grows up really by 2007, hits the mainstream, moving away from like a Facebook of girls to date in Ivy League schools to a mainstream social media platform. MySpace, which had also arisen in this new era, but MySpace made a classic mistake. They became myopic. They were so focused on on the me, they lost sight of we because it's all about my space. Here, come visit me in my room. Come, it was all about me. Come see me, etc. Facebook got it right. They added the we to it. And all of a sudden, you've got these community, personal social media platforms and also search engines and the like, and now everybody is watching everything you do. Everywhere you go, everybody who's a friend, everything you say. Algorithms are designed and engineered by engineers in partnership with psychologists and analysts. And all of a sudden, if you said, I'm going to go get some dog food, there'd be a dog food ad immediately in your feed, et cetera, et cetera. And now there's a creep looking over your shoulder all the time. What people don't realize is that Facebook, which is now Meta, of course, but Facebook was doing it to non-users as well as users as you fast forward into the 2010s. By 2000, I think 16 or thereabouts, the Wall Street Journal, very prominent economic newspaper, major, one of the biggest papers in the world, had reported that Facebook was tracking non-members just as much as members and aggregating data. The data ecosystem was born. Surveillance capitalism became and still is the economic model of the day because it makes these companies, incredible sums of money, hand over fist, as they say, and it gave them enough money, then they became monopolies. So this is Web 2, which we still live in the era of surveillance capitalism, where companies know more about you than a government or the CIA or the Secret Service or anything ever will. And this is where we've been for a long time.
It makes me think whether this is actually going to be helpful or a hindrance, or whether these people are telling us that it's helpful, but they've got this sideline little agenda that they're using things for their own ends at the same time, or whether it's all for their own ends and they're just telling us another story.
Michael, first of all, now everybody, I started a company in Web 2. When I saw what Facebook was up to, I started a company called MeWe, MEWE, the me and the we. And what was brilliant about MeWe was that we had timeline news feeds. So, your news feed, if your best friend posted something, or your mom, or, somebody, or, a common interest group you're a part of, you just got all that in timeline order. People still love MeWe's still around, by the way. I'm not at the helm anymore. I left 4 years ago to write the book on how we fixed this huge mess. We had a privacy bill of rights. I've been ranked one of the top privacy experts in the world for a long time. Um, but for a surveillance capitalism company, remember, capitalism is not ethical by design. Human beings bring ethics to an entity or don't bring ethics to an entity. So, what happened in the Metas and the Googles and the Snaps and the TikToks today and the Instas and even the WhatsApps is that, the idea is to get you involved in a service, but you are the product to sell, not the customer to serve. The customer to serve today is anybody who will pay to target and manipulate your thoughts, your news feed, your purchase decisions, your emotions, your votes. Those are the customers. Nefarious entities, bot farms, troll farms, countries trying to disrupt democracy, marketing companies, advertising companies, anybody who's got money to spend, those are the customers to serve for these companies.
So when it's all said and done, then would you say that this is something that is beneficial for us as a public, or do you think it's more harmful, doing more harm than good?
I don't see any benefit at all, Michael. I'm sorry. The idea that there might be something beneficial that was perpetrated upon us as, a marketing idea by these companies. Oh, we'll make them think it's good for you. Is it really good for you if they know that, what shoe you wear and they're going to pop an ad, you could just go to the site, right? Is it really good for you when governments have access to all this information, when your privacy is gone? Is it really good for you when all this data is stolen, as it was during the Cambridge Analytica scandal? And nefarious countries, Russians, the Chinese, North Koreans, everybody has your data. In fact, the Chinese have most biometric data on everybody in the world. Is that really a good idea? That's not even barely helpful. That's harmful. This is how the world is being disrupted. This is how young people's minds are being disrupted because they can be targeted and manipulated. This is how, really the humanity is being disrupted. This is not, by the way, the vision of social media in Web 1. So what's happened is an idea that was very beautiful and was capitalistic for sure, because I love capitalism, but it's been completely distorted. And Shoshana Zuboff wrote a great book over at Harvard on surveillance capitalism. I have a 9-minute TED Talk, everybody, if you just want a quick sort of jaw-dropping briefer on surveillance capitalism. Just search Mark Weinstein TED Talk and you'll find it, or The Rise of Surveillance Capitalism in my name. Now, listen, so what's happened? So then Web3 was born. And most of you who are listening may have heard this phrase Web3, but nearly all of us have no clue what the heck is Web3 because it hasn't ever really come into the mainstream. And it's really not likely to. And let me explain to you why. Web3 is a blockchain cryptocurrency based, medium. And some of these ideas are very good. Decentralized data so that you would actually control your data, not these huge companies. We would get privacy back with decentralized data. Data interoperability, where you could control your data, whether you choose to share in the monetization of it or not. In other words, where you share your data with a marketing company and then you share in the money they make off of you. And data interoperability, where you can download your data. There would be a standard protocol. You could download your data off of Meta, for example, and then upload it using the same protocol, a standardized system, to a site that is more aligned with your integrity, with your ethics, with your desires, where you're not simply being sold down the river and being manipulated, which is, as I said, causing huge harm. Now, the promises of Web3, unfortunately, don't live up to its reality. The other thing about Web3 is in social media, Web3 is designed around this fundamentally flawed idea that we all want to monetize our personal relationships. Completely flawed. I don't want to, because cryptocurrency is the exchange, is the money of exchange, on these platforms. And the way these companies make money is they create a coin, and then that coin is traded on the platform. We upvote, downvote for moderation. We like posts, somebody's post, we upvote them, we downvote them. And there's all this, these fractional pieces of crypto that get shared around, and the company, gets a share in the transaction. The company's always getting a piece of the transactions, etc. But here's the problem, everybody. People don't want to monetize their social relationships. And this has been tried now for nearly 10 years. There was Minds, Steemit, Voice, and others. They never get more than, a million or less in terms of site activity because they're never going to grow to 50 or 100 million or more users who are engaged in this kind of financial transaction for their everyday community relationships. It's just not what humanity is interested in. So they've consistently failed at that. They may succeed at getting a coin valuable on a platform. They can get a few million people trading it, but that's a different conversation. Also, blockchain is an engineering language. To building a social media on blockchain doesn't work because blockchain doesn't scale. It doesn't scale to handle the data, the constant transfer of information and postings of many millions of people. Remember, Facebook has 3 billion members. Blockchain can't possibly facilitate anything. That's an impossibility. Sir Tim Berners-Lee, a friend of mine, the inventor of the World Wide Web, had his team attempt to see if they could, quote, crack the code and get blockchain to behave and be efficient and to scale properly. And he gave up in 2022 and said it just doesn't work. So, and the other one of the promises of Web3 was anonymity, which was a flawed promise. They don't promise that anymore because the beautiful thing about blockchain is it totally connects a poster or a transaction to the original person. Your identity is always known somewhere in the chain. So anyway, so Web3 is not going to work for social media, which is where it does work for financial transactions and other things, which it can be very effective at. That's different. It's not a constant thread amongst a few hundred or whatever it is people, and it's going on and on and on, thousands. So it works really well for other applications, particularly insurance, health, finance, things like that. So we need a new paradigm. And what we need, Michael, is Web 4.
So I wonder that including things like AI and blockchain, I mean, I've heard of these things before. I wonder, is there a world where we marry those two in that AI is what unlocks blockchain's ability to scale, or am I skipping ahead?
I think we need to talk about AI separate from its ability to help engineer blockchain. AI is a fascinating development as we're all sort of like, wowed by it right now. And it's just incredible. The flaw, there's good AI and bad AI. Listen, right now, what we are watching, I'm sure you're watching, Michael, and everybody listening, whether it's you, everybody who's listening, or somebody family members, kids, grown-ups, parents, grandparents, everybody's stuck on their phones and on their laptops longer than ever because surveillance capitalism immediately caused the advancement of algorithms, as we talked about earlier, that are spying on you, that are manipulating your newsfeed, that are watching everything you do, and then deciding what post you should see first, so it's not timeline order anymore, and what product you might be interested in, or how to persuade you to vote a different way, or how to anticipate your next thought. And now AI is here. And every major company uses AI to supercharge their algorithm. So if you think you have control over your news feed, think again. Everybody who's listening, all of us, we are being manipulated every fractional second by supercharged algorithms, AI supercharged algorithms that can now truly anticipate our thoughts before we think them. Can, if boosted content is being paid for that's supposed to change our opinions, can serve it up in a way that will actually change your opinion, can manipulate, exactly everything that you do, your self-image, how you think about others, how you think about politics, etc. So we are in a massive mess, driven by, basically capitalism, which doesn't have an ethical foundation, driven by this incredible supernova technologies like AI. Now, AI is also fascinating for its positive potential. So we're going to see now, good AI versus bad AI, because we got to weed out the bots and trolls. AI is going to be great at hiding them. Good AI has got to find them. We've got to get back to real people on the web. So we've got to get some way of user ID verification. Sam Altman has an idea. Sir Tim Berners-Lee, I think, has a better idea with his solid infrastructure for user ID verification, for data decentralization, and to manage and control your wallet safely. So we're in a fascinating moment. Is AI going to help blockchain scale? Well, AI can help, because it can analyze in incredible ways, can make anything more efficient, but blockchain is still a technology. So I think what we're going to see in Web 4 is a marriage of the technologies of really Webs 2 and 3. And hopefully we can start to deep six surveillance capitalism. We can start to move towards user ID verification and protect our kids. We can start to find a way to get rid of bots and trolls, and we can start to find protocols for user data portability. Now, these are all coming. How quickly, a lot of that depends on governments and things like that, because we need certain standards. But the exciting thing, Michael, is that the fix is here. The fix is known, the things that we can do. Um, and now it's time for some great startups, to help. And this is where the free market is critical. And this is why you see the United States government actually trying to enforce antitrust regulations, because democracy and capitalism are a great marriage with the free market. Once the free market is gone, then you have monopolies controlling the markets, the economy, and you actually don't advance. You get stuck, and you get stuck in ways that are perpetrations to human beings.
So how do we actually look after ourselves with all of this, whether it's our children, whether it's ourselves? I'm starting to feel like we need to have another hand on the wheel somewhere. You mentioned blockchain allowing the passage of data, as in it's trackable, it's traceable, and then we need to link that. Well, how do we then maintain our privacy with all of that going on? It seems like a bit of a web. It's all interconnected, pardon the pun there, Mark. But how do we navigate this? How do we not lose ourselves in the whole thing?
Michael, that's why I left MeWe in 2022, completely left MeWe in 2022, about 3.5 years ago. And I took 3 years to write, to study, research. And of course, I've been in the trenches for 25 plus years. So now I've created the roadmap. Some people call it the prescription, um, Restoring Our Sanity Online. This is the book that I've written. This is actually the roadmap for our way home, so to speak, our way to a better future, our way to saving our kids, saving ourselves, saving democracy, and enjoying technology that serves us while, supporting profitable enterprises. As I said, there's two things I love in this conversation we're having. I love social media and I love capitalism. And together, they can be an incredibly great marriage, because capitalism is all about the free market. It's all about coming up with great ideas that serve people and then identifying ways that can respectfully monetize. And it's called, there's a friend of mine, Raj Sisodia, who's a co-founder of a movement called conscious capitalism. It's called doing well by doing good. And he has reams of data on all the great companies that are conscious capitalist companies that are hugely profitable and successful, serving people. So, there's certainly hope. And one of the things, Michael, yeah, I have a chapter in the book. Everybody, the book is also full of anecdotes from all my years in the trenches, stories you haven't heard. Um, and some of them are quite hilarious. When you read about Facebook asking every Australian member of Facebook to send them a naked picture of themselves. And you got to get into the book to read this whole story. This really happened. It's unbelievable, the gaffes and the mistakes and the stories in the trenches. But we're here in this inflection point where we can do this, and antitrust can help. In the United States, we've got this case against Meta right now, antitrust case. We're waiting for the judge to rule. Maybe we'll get lucky and we'll see the first vestiges of a mandated protocol for data portability. We do need, user ID verification in certain instances on social media. Now, that may sound like blasphemy to some people, especially because I've been the privacy advocate saying that is blasphemy for years. And I've been on government committees telling everybody on the committee, don't you dare create any kind of user ID verification system. Well, two things have changed. Number one, they already know who we are. Fast forward, from the last 13 years, and 13 years ago, I was on all these committees telling these committee members they were nuts and don't you dare interfere with my privacy. It was really my anonymity. So here's what's happened. They already know who we are. The data ecosystem knows who everybody is. So as I said, Meta has been collecting data on members who, people who weren't members for just as long, basically, as they've been collecting data on their members. There's a huge data ecosystem. As Yael Eisenstadt, a former CIA operative in the United States, who then went to work for Facebook, as she says, Facebook knows more about you than the CIA does. So when you start to think about the governments, the big corporations, because governments have access to all this data, to the huge data ecosystem, telecom companies, credit card companies, everybody knows everything about you. So let's stop pretending we have anonymity. But the bots and trolls have anonymity, and that's wrong. We need to know where the bots and trolls are and that they're bots and trolls because they're the ones that are disrupting. They're the ones making people in democratic societies hate each other. Remember, democracy is based on a fundamental idea, disagreement. Disagreement is the backbone of democracy, of a highly functioning democracy. And we never hated each other. Our neighbors might think something different about this or that or the other. And that's fine. We would just have these conversations, then we'd have a barbecue together. We'd be friends and our families are friends. But now, with the advent of millions of bots and trolls, and by the way, they can be programmed to have credit cards, they can be programmed to get blue checks on X, et cetera, et cetera. So we have got to protect our kids whose minds and futures and critical thinking are being disrupted. So we have to have a user ID verification system. If you're a whistleblower, a marginalized community, don't get on social media. This doesn't apply anywhere else. But for social media, we need to know that a 12-year-old is a 12-year-old, and we need to know that any creep trying to get in or a bot and troll, we need to be able to be clear in the identity, factor that person doesn't get in. That person can't, influence, affect, or harm any kids. This is not hard to do. Australia is already looking at a system. I believe Spain is also. The European Commission, I know, is looking at systems, ways this can be done. We have to do it in a careful way. But as I said, it's time, even for me. Look, they already know who we are. The data system knows you, whether you think it does or not, but the data system doesn't know a bot or a troll. And we've got to be able to get them out and get the creeps away from, our kids. And this way, if there's a site with terms and service, if somebody or something is breaking the rules, we'll be able to identify. Use pseudonyms. I'm all for pseudonyms. On a platform, on a regular social media platform, just use a pseudonym. So, but if you break the rules and you break the law, the site will know who you are. This is what we have to get to. Privacy comes back, anonymity is going away.
So outside of the user verification, how would you suppose this better social media would look? Is there a way of figuring it out? Have you ever had the chance to brainstorm this where, social media done better?
Of course, the whole book is about that. Thanks for asking, man. The whole book, the book has, absolutely, this is a prescription. This is not just, a book to read and thumb through. No, this is a book that tells the governments what to do. It has a 7-point plan for eradicating bots and trolls. It talks about how you can democratize the future Web4 companies so that your users, your members, are customers to serve, and members who are really helping you with engagement also share in the monetization. And it also is all about members have control of their data. Members decide, and this is where this is the marriage also of, a data decentralization and data portability and great features because you want to inspire people to be creators. There are so many creators now. Inspire them, help them. And a site can charge for features and things that it helps creators, build and do on their platforms that help them with engagement. So there are a lot of ways, and user advisory boards. I'm all about user having input. Right now, users have no input. We're really the victims in a blind system where we have no say and we feel disempowered. But this is really conscious capitalism, and it's really appropriate. There's tons of profits in doing well by doing good. And this is where from Web 1, which was really this vision of serving the world, whether it was a drugstore company, a pet food company, a social network company, it was all about serving the customer who were the members, who were the people, paying for the goods or using the platforms. So this is all doable. We need legislation. In America, America is the only country without a Privacy Right Act. There's no such thing. There's the Kids Online Safety Act in America, in Congress. It's bipartisan supported. There's the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act version 2, COPPA 2. These are bipartisan supported. We need to get Melania Trump more involved. She helped pass the Take It Down Act. She was a big supporter of this new law that passed in the US this year called the Take It Down Act. So if there's any revenge porn, if somebody is posting some really, you know, naked, pornographic, unfair images of you, you can alert the site. They got to take that down. They have 48 hours to take it down or they'll get fined. So there are lots of ways, and there's in the book I write the whole prescription. I call it restoration networking. That's Web 4. And there's a constitution. There's a whole, the whole outline is there. And a bunch of this is going to come into existence, but we need people to become aware and we need the free market to start to work. So, the book is also designed to inspire entrepreneurs, but the book is for all of us. As Tim Berners-Lee says, the book is for all of us. So, Michael, it's all in the book, Restoring Our Sanity Online. And, of course, it's available audio, it's on Kindle, it's on Amazon and at all bookstores. You can order it anywhere. This is how, we fix everything, how we save ourselves, how we save our kids, how we save democracy, and how we get back to loving social media without feeling like every time we're on it, like we're getting stuck and there's something we know, there's a weird feeling in our gut. It's like, this is yucky, but I can't get off of it. We want to get away from that. We want to be able to move our data and support companies that take care of our well-being and that give us a lot of fun at the same time.
As one last question for you, Mark, if you were in front of the people that were designing this, so whether it be Web 4 or beyond, let's say someone's in the trenches right now putting this together, how would you encourage them? What would be the reason behind it? If you think of we've come so far now, why would someone build it in this way? What would be the reason?
Oh, that's easy. Thank you, Michael. First of all, everybody, we're stuck, right? We've been stuck with Meta, with Insta, with Facebook, with X, with Snap, with TikTok for too long. This is very unprecedented. So we already know there are billions of people that are ready for something better. And all the surveys show that. Any survey that's ever been taken on Facebook users says, they would jump for a site that serves them better and protects them and respects them better. What we need is they're right now people are stuck because it's called the network effect. Their social graph is there. And so, but the opportunity now is to create a new platform with great features that respects users, that gives them lots of, and the book talks about all the different kinds of features you can engineer. So I give you, the menu, and then you'll come up with your own brilliant ideas. Remember, Snap started with disappearing content. They got in trouble because the pictures didn't disappear. A bunch of our listeners will probably remember Snap's disappearing content, which was cool. And all of a sudden they got millions of members and they got in trouble because the pictures didn't really disappear. They just dropped into a hidden folder on your phone and could be hacked. And so Snap smartly ported into social networking. There are huge opportunities. And there are obviously most of the world, 2/3 of the world is involved in social media. So, there are plenty of customers waiting for you. Get a great idea, demonstrate viability, keep your costs low. And remember the two things that are most important, users and revenue. Find a way, at first, use freemium. People have to love what's free. And then figure out a respectful way to monetize. Maybe it's upselling certain features that they pay, $5 a month for. But make sure they love what's free. They got to love what's free. And this is a wide open field now. The world is ready. Billions of people are ready for what's next.
Well, Mark, I think it paints quite a positive picture. As long as there is someone out there that's looking out for us, out for the person using the service or the application that's out there. So I think it's positive. I think it's actually quite an exciting future that you paint for us, Mark. So I wonder, for those that are watching or listening, how can people connect with you? So I don't know if you're on social media still, but how can people find more about you?
Yeah, and everybody, what's interesting about me is that I don't build a social media following, and because of that, I am, interviewed all the time around the world in major publications and on, podcasts like Michael's all the time. Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Fortune, Forbes, Fox, you name it, because I'm agnostic. I don't care what the politics of a platform is. I care that we're talking about common sense truths and common sense about the future for social media. So, having said that, as I said, my book is available. You can reach out to me. I have a website called markweinsteininventor.com. And you can also send me an email, Mark, M-A-R-K, at restoretheweb.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, and please do stay in touch. And together, we're taking our power back. And we're going to make social media great again. And, there's help is on the way.
Thanks so much for being a guest on the show. Those that are listening, feel free to subscribe, share the show, tell others, and also leave a review wherever you are listening into your podcasts. Mark, thanks so much. It's been great, and I look forward to keeping in touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Great to be on your show. Thanks so much for your time.